And I don't care who you are, I'll tell you to your face to fuck off.
So now you can't call and say, my restaurant, you want to come, otherwise fuck off. You can't do that anymore.
No way. Absolutely not. You can't do it anymore.
You're this Malabar Hill kid from Bombay. You've grown up with privilege. What did it feel like to work as a dishwasher?
You know, I used to tell everyone there that I was an Israeli war veteran that still suffered from shell shock.
This was partying with alcohol?
Alcohol, drugs, whatever.
I was going to gently say white powder, but
Yeah,
you
it all
also eat
happened.
drugs, huh?
It all
So
happened.
that's like the classic
It
chef's trap.
It all happened.
David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister, came to the restaurant.
Yeah, that's a funny story.
What happened?
MI6 agent comes down to the kitchen. She's like all frazzled. She goes, "What are you doing, Mon?" So I said, "What?" She goes, "You can't serve the PM first." I said, "But he's the PM." She goes, "Yeah, man, but if he eats first and he's done and leaves, we have to get up and go. I want to eat my dinner, man." You know?
But you could say the mistake was starting the expansion before the funds came in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which a business person would not have done.
Yeah.
You had such a successful restaurant.
We were in, I don't know.
How could you not find proper backers?
We almost went bankrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, I was responsible for the livelihoods of, 500-600 families at this point.
That some of your own key employees went over to the dark side?
That happened.
But did they really believe they could run the Indigo empire without you? Rolling. Hello and welcome to Table 1. Very few people can claim to have changed gastronomy in a city like Mumbai. Very few can claim to have ushered in a revolution in restauranting. I'm very fortunate today to be talking to a man who can claim that with justification, Rahul Akerkar. His story is a story of great success, but ultimately also a story about the need for caution. Welcome, Rahul Akerkar.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. How have you been? How's the book done?
I think the book's doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still can't believe that I wrote a book.
Why did you write a book? Let's start from the beginning.
So I think going back to Indigo, I wanted to do an Indigo cookbook.
Okay.
Which, just seems a thing to do, right? Yeah. And so I started working on that. I'd take off every now and then and go 2 weeks to Alibag and sit there and write recipes and try them out and stuff like that. Eventually, I got bored of that. And so the Indigo cookbook never happened. But somewhere in the back of my head, I've always wanted to do that. I just didn't know how it would be. And then I think when COVID happened, and everything kind of stilled down a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we did a lot of reflection, and just sort of thinking about how, I guess I was thinking about how I wound up where I was. And it just started happening.
But the theme of the book, I don't know if you intended it to be that, is a guy from a multicultural background with a multinational experience, launches a sort of restaurant revolution in India, succeeds, and then is done in by Judases in his own side and by the greed of investors. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's really what the story was, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not a story that people knew. I knew some of it, but most people didn't know much of it, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people just assumed, Indigo did so much and created so much noise around it that I was in this untouchable, rarefied, space, and I had created Indigo and all that. But behind the scenes, things were not as they all appeared, I guess.
In fact, reading the book, I realized what it must have been like behind the scenes, which you couldn't really tell as a guest to Indigo.
Yeah. No, it was tough and it hurt, I think it hurt.
Hurt? You must have been devastated.
Yeah, it was. Ironically, though, I guess the one thing I was left with after this whole separation process,
Yeah.
right? The one thing I was left with that I guess when I was finally reconciled to the fact that, I was stepping away from what I had created, and I was stepping away from what was sort of inextricably linked to my success and to my, who I was, my identity. That when I finally figured that out, I guess I wish I had just done everything 2 years earlier. That always happens, right?
But there's like three distinct components of the book, at least from the perspective of this reader, which is there's a first component about your family, about growing up, about working in New York. There's a second section, which is about the years of success, how you challenge the orthodoxy, you open restaurants that people thought would never work, and you create a new kind of restaurant. And then there's a third section, which is how a creative person who's a pioneer can actually be done in by traitors in his own team and by financiers.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how you would see it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so let's do all three first. Let's do the first one. I think most people didn't realize that you had Jewish blood in it.
Yeah.
I knew, but I don't think most people realize. Tell us about it. Tell us a bit about your background.
So, mom's side of the family, German Jews. Her maiden name is Oppenheimer. Unfortunately, no relation to the South
physicists.
African Oppenheimers.
Or to the physicists.
Well, I believe there's some distant relation. Yeah, there's some distant connect there, but I don't know for sure. But anyway,
no De Beers connection.
No,
diamonds.
Unfortunately not.
Right.
She was an only child.
Yeah.
They anticipated the war.
Yeah.
And my grandfather and mum and her mum fled. They first went to France, and then when the war caught up with France, fled from there to Cuba, and then finally to New York.
Yeah.
And she met my dad at university in the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and fell in love, and all of that. And long story short, she moved to India, early 1950 sometime.
That's right. When you never had stories like that because A, it's a great love story, and B, your parents became Mumbai institutions.
And I think more than that, even her I think gutsy for her dad to
let her go.
After having fled and the history that they had, not having any real home. To finally let his daughter go halfway across the world.
He sent her, or she came to the one country in the world where there's never been anti-Semitism.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, which is very interesting.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
Growing up, we were never really religious. I think.
Did you have any sense of your ethnic origins, of being a Maharashtrian part or the Jewish part, or
not
you were
really,
just a Bombay boy?
I was just a Bombay boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think time spent in Nashik with my grandparents,
which is in the book,
because my Aji was very orthodox and very devout. So I guess a lot of that rubbed off on me. But there was really nothing from the Jewish side at all. I didn't know anything about it.
When did you find out?
I guess when I was older.
Yeah.
I guess around. I knew mom was Jewish, and I knew that made me Jewish. I also knew dad
because you inherit through the mother in the Jewish tradition.
Yeah, and you go through the father in the Hindu traditions.
There can't have been, at least then or even now, that many hybrids of Marathi Brahmin, presumably, and Ashkenazi Jew.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much one of a kind.
There are a few.
Yeah?
Yeah. I have several friends who are Hindus.
So Marathi Brahmins?
Not necessarily that, but Indian and
Indian and Jewish.
Indian and
yes,
Jewish. Yeah.
It's that particular combination.
Maybe not so many.
I've not actually come across it.
Yeah, probably not.
When you started realizing that you had this history, did you realize that you were Jewish or that you were part American? What was more important?
I don't think either was important, or maybe as a kid growing up, I liked the idea that I was different and that I was, that maybe the American side of it. But I think the reality when I went to college in the US, because that was the first time that I spent a period of time
Yeah.
there, right? And I think eventually you kind of wind up realizing that you're equally at home in both places, but you're also equally alienated in both places. In other words, as an American, I never felt American because of my Indian side, and as an Indian, I never felt Indian completely
Really?
because of
Even when you were growing up in Bombay, did you realize?
yeah, I was always a little bit different, and I think it's because of the way we were raised at home.
Explain that.
Mom and dad were very Western in their approach, at a time when I think other people were conservative
Yeah.
at home. My parents were very liberal, very sort of allowed us to be very independent,
Yeah.
allowed us to forge our own path, and all that, which is not a very traditionally Indian thing for growing up in the early 1960s. It was a little more conservative and a little more traditional, I guess.
And more ordered, I think, most
More
people,
ordered, yeah.
Whereas you seem to be allowed to do pretty much
Yep.
what you want to without reason.
Yeah, school, for example. Mom wasn't happy with the way the system of education was, and so she and a whole bunch of other parents got together and founded Bombay International School. So where I went, where my sister went to, and so they were always pretty clear about that there's a right way, and and that there's a way that everyone else is doing, and they don't necessarily overlap.
But in a way, your parents epitomized the best of Bombay, right?
Yeah.
Because they had no religious prejudices, nothing.
Absolutely.
They came from a multicultural background.
Yeah.
They gave the kids freedom. You felt you weren't a Brahmin or a Jew. You were just somebody
I was
in
just a
Bombay.
human being.
You were just a human being.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think the Bombay of your parents, unfortunately, is now vanishing. But it was a great Bombay.
It's long gone.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, then you go to America and you start working at restaurants in America. Tell us a bit about that.
So that was interesting. I kind of stumbled into it.
Yeah.
My first job was working in the Catskill Mountains.
Which is a very Jewish thing to do. Which is a very Jewish thing to do.
Very Jewish thing to do in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And I worked there as a waiter.
Yeah.
And my stutter was very bad, I remember. And I was, it was really the first job that I had ever had. I mean, I did stuff when I worked in, college came after. So yeah, this was really the first job that I had when I was, I think, 16 years old or 17 when I first went. And I mean, and that was interesting because, I used to tell everyone there that I was that I was an Israeli war a veteran that still suffered from shell shock, and so
At the age of 16.
yeah, and
What was the
because
war? The
I
toy
was
wars,
supposedly from the war, right? And it was really odd because whenever they would start asking me about Israel, I'd say, I really can't talk about it. It brings back too many bad memories, and
you
all
carried this off.
Yeah. It was
You're a good actor as well.
kind of absurd, but that's what happened.
Why would you do that?
I guess it was a way to hide my stutter, or the way to kind of address that.
Was your stutter a big problem for you psychologically?
Yeah, I think what growing up, I stuttered on and off, and it got bad when I went to Doon. And then when I went to college in the States. So, I mean, any times when there was stress,
it would come back.
It would get very prominent. And I think because of that, I spent my formative years sort of more as an observer rather than a partaker, because I was always...
That little distance from you and the rest of it.
Right.
Did that help you with perspective, or did it sort of disappear with your stutter?
No, I don't think it disappeared at all. I think in some way it kind of made me a bit of a gyani. In other words, you're thinking about the world around you a lot. You're observing people, you're observing interactions about, what people are saying, how they're doing things like that. And I think it kind of leaves an impression on you.
When you started working in America in American restaurants, because we had nothing like that in India,
Yeah.
had you had experience of that from your childhood? Or was
Nothing.
it as new a world to you as it would have been to anyone else?
Completely new world. I had no idea. I just jumped in and it just happened. I mean,
What struck you most about those experiences?
a couple of things. One was, it was the first time, as I said, also that I was working,
Yeah.
right? And it wasn't really a sense of part-time job because I worked a 40-hour week.
Right.
Crammed into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday brunch, Sunday dinner. So into 5 shifts. And I think one of the things clearly that I learned was the whole, I think, American work ethic.
Yeah.
All right. Which is you work hard. You put in the time, you put in the hours. There's no such thing ki ye mera kaam nahi hai. It's you just
And
do what
everybody
you
works
need.
as hard, whether
Everybody
you're a
works.
busboy or you're the manager.
Doesn't matter.
When you worked in America, most of it was service. There wasn't a real kitchen experience. Yeah?
No, actually, it wasn't. I spent most of the time in the kitchen.
What did you do in the kitchen?
Everything. So I started my first job. I worked as a dishwasher
Okay.
in this very small French restaurant called
Okay,
Jethro's.
just to stop you there. You're this Malabar Hill kid from Bombay. You've grown up with privilege. What did it feel like to work as a dishwasher?
I didn't care.
You don't care?
I
That means
didn't
your parents
care.
brought you up well. No?
I never cared about any of that. It was something I was doing and I did it well. This is the way that we were raised. My parents always encouraged us to do anything. They supported us completely. And their whole thing about life was like, do anything you want to do, but just do it well. So, we will try, and our role is to give you the best education and best life that we can afford and provide for. And your job is to take that and do anything you want and do it well. So if you want to be, after all that, you want to be a plumber, be a damn good one.
Yeah.
If you want to be a scientist, be a damn good one. So that was, I think, inculcated in us. And whatever we did, his sister or myself, it was always, we poured in, we poured our heart and soul into it.
So when you worked as a dishwasher and then later, as you corrected me, in the kitchen, did you feel like you were a visitor to America?
No.
Did you feel like an American?
I felt like an American, I guess, in a way.
Okay.
I was, working in a restaurant in the back,
You dropped the Israeli war veteran stuff.
Oh yeah. That was long gone. That was just for a very short, for a short time in the summer. No, here it was, to me, there was a huge excitement also about working in a restaurant, seeing how things happen. And it was a tiny place. It had 5 tables. And the kitchen, there were just 2 of us. There was the head cook or the chef for the night. And there was the dishwasher who also doubled up as a, doing the garde-manger, so doing salads and that kind of stuff. And so that eventually turned out to be me for a while. And then, and the reason that happened, it was actually quite funny. I was doing summer school at F&M at Franklin Marshall in Lancaster. And we'd go 3 nights a week to Jethro's, which is the name of this restaurant, to drink martinis because they made a great martini. And at the end of the summer, I was broke. And so I turned to Ed, who was the owner. He was a F&M alumnus, and he was also a chef. He'd been to culinary school in Philadelphia. And I turned to Ed and I said, if you want me to keep coming here and spending money, you're going to have to give me a job so I can earn some. And that's how I started. I started as a dishwasher once school started. He had a visiting chef who worked with the gentleman who owned the Hamilton Watch Company in Lancaster, and Paul Asso, who from Nice, who came from this lineage of chefs, and he would come into the restaurant and sort of set the specials. And Paul took me under wing and taught me to cook. That's how it
The interesting
started.
thing about your food is while you've done very casual restaurants, you have a very strong classical cooking base.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I asked you to make a hollandaise or a béarnaise, you would make the best béarnaise I can think of. So where does that come from?
I think maybe from a lot had to do with first taught cooking by Paul. So, and he did everything that the FDA would have strangled us for.
Like what?
Well, he'd slaughter a geese in the basement, and
That's very French.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it was very Provençal. The cooking, making
Blood sausage.
blood jellies and stuff
my
like
God,
that,
okay.
and yeah, all sorts of stuff. So, but it was good. It was a great learning. Then I spent 5 summers in southern Italy, where I picked up my Italian food, and I think, wherever I worked, and I think it had to do with the time also that I was working in restaurants in New York. They were just starting to move from, in the 1980s, they were moving from nouvelle cuisine, and it was, finally was the birth of
American cuisine.
modern American, which of course came from French roots, right? And so the chefs that I worked with in the early days were all very solid cooks. And so I guess
So that's where it comes from.
yeah, I think so.
And the Italian stuff comes from actually spending time in it.
In Italy, in the
Okay,
South,
so-
yeah.
Here's my question. You had the right to live in America. You were a very good chef, clearly, because you picked up quickly. Why did you not stay on? Why did you come back to India?
I never felt I was a chef. I always felt, in some way, I guess I felt I was I don't want to say poser, but like I was not, I had never been to culinary school. I didn't know the basics. I didn't know it, as in it was never taught to me in a curriculum, in a
You
way
didn't
that
know
it
the basics.
unfolded.
You just hadn't learned them in a curriculum.
Yeah. And stuff along those lines. And it took me many years to finally feel that I was a chef. I always felt I was a cook.
Really?
Yeah.
And in your mind, the difference was what?
I think a chef is more of a leader. In other words, I think it's a difference between, let's say, a general and an infantryman. It's...
But surely you were always a general, weren't you?
No.
No?
No.
Psychologically, no?
Psychologically, no. It took me a very long time. In fact, really, it's only after I came back here and started doing my own restaurants that I slowly started to feel that I could call myself a chef.
How interesting. And the Stutter, what happened to that?
Well, after I finished F&M, I found this guy. He's a speech pathologist with NYU and does this 2-day workshop, and then you have access to his lab, his speech lab, for the rest of your life. And it was a lot of exercises, a lot of work, therapy, stuff like that. But I was able to lick it. It still comes back.
You've seen The King's Speech, the movie?
Yeah.
Was it like that?
Yeah.
It was really
It was, absolutely. I mean, I was like that. I used to be a violent stutterer, where you can't get a word out edgewise.
And did that affect the rest of your life?
Yeah, it did. Of course it did.
So once you licked
You
it,
feel less, in
that's
a
what I
way.
said.
Yeah,
And awkward at every situation.
absolutely.
So once you'd licked it, did it change your personality?
Totally. I became this, totally outgoing, gregarious type A. I wanted to do all these crazy things. I went skydiving. I learned scuba diving. I did all
as
these
simple
things.
as that.
Yeah. I just completely swung around. It was crazy.
So back to my original question. You never considered staying on in America?
No. So it was reaching a point. So I had, by 86, I had a falling out with my advisor. And just after my master's, I was doing 2 years into my PhD. I was doing research and I had a falling out and I lost interest overnight. I literally quit school and then I didn't know what the
Are you like that?
Yeah.
A single falling out and you totally turn
very,
off.
very, very impulsive.
Okay.
If I lose interest, I just act and
you leave.
I'm done.
Okay. So when you come back to India, what came first, the thing with AD or Under the Over?
AD.
Okay. Now I have a story.
But prior to that,
Yeah.
I was doing catering out of the house. I didn't know. I mean, I came back and I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to do something in food because I had, just spent a lot of time telling my parents that I have all these pieces of paper, but I'm, not a biochemical engineer. I'm going to be a cook. And so, they said, go for it.
But food was really important to you.
Yeah, I think it was.
I'll tell you a story. You've probably forgotten this. In 1999, there was some cooking panel or something organized at the Leela in Bombay. I was the moderator. I think Rohit Khattar was in the panel, Sabina Saigal-Saikia, you, AD, and one or two other people who I don't remember. And I remember asking, what is it that makes a restaurant successful? And you guys had just ended being partners.
AD was...
And
it's always,
AD was like in his Razor Ramon pose. It was like vintage, relaxed, laid back AD. And he said the buzz. A restaurant has to have buzz. I won't do the impersonation. Yeah. Nothing else works. Just imagine me being very laid back.
And I got all worked out.
That's right. And I said, but what happens when the buzz disappears? Because no restaurant buzz can last forever. So you close it down and open
a new one. Yeah.
And I said to you, what makes a restaurant work? And you said the food.
Yeah.
People may come once or twice because of the buzz. But if you want them to come back, it's
got to be the food.
I just seemed to summarize and sum up why the two of you could never really be partners in the long term.
And I mean, we still laugh about it because we still maintain that. Though I have to say, in the times that we live now, when your phone eats first, he may be right today.
Yeah. And also, I mean, to be fair, though he's made so much fun of food, etc., a lot of his restaurants have succeeded.
They've done very well
because of the food.
Yeah.
Someone like Manu Chandra got his first break with AD, etc. So he's created great chefs out of that thing. So I suspect he's moved his position somewhat.
So
you, who kept saying it was food, created the buzziest place of all, Indigo.
Yeah.
So I think you met somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely.
Okay. So with AD, you did a dessert bar.
Yeah.
Which was basically you went into somebody's restaurant at night and took it over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was actually very clever. AD was the one who had come up with this whole thing.
Sorry, before I'm accused of getting too incestuous, we mean AD saying the founder of Olivia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he had already signed this place. Basically, he went to the people. It was the Parisian Cafe.
That's right. In the fort or something. Right?
Yeah, just across the road from the Tata headquarters. And they shut at 6 because it was in the fort area and there was no business past that. And he said, we'd like to take over your place at night. And the guy laughed and he said, what are you talking about? So he worked a great deal. We had one fridge in there that was ours, and we had a small cupboard in there where we kept all our own cutlery and crockery and stuff. And then AD reached out to me, and I basically took over the operation. I did the food, I did the desserts.
And AD did the buzz.
And he did the buzz, and it was wild. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
it was actually a very big deal in Bombay, right?
It was.
Everybody talked about it.
It was. I mean, we had lines of people waiting to get in. And it was just fun. And it was wild because, I mean, while I did a lot of the desserts, I couldn't do it all. So we spoke to a lot of these Parsi
ladies who used to pudding.
Home chefs.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would supply us cake and stuff. It was quite the operation. It was fun.
I've always thought that in many ways your restaurants epitomize Bombay, because I don't think just desserts, that's what it was called, right?
Just desserts,
could have happened in any other city.
No.
And then Under the Over, I mean, forgive me for saying this, epitomized Kambala Hill and Malabar Hill.
Yeah.
It was the ultimate neighborhood restaurant.
It absolutely was. And I think what really made it work at the time was, I think it was the first Western food restaurant that was sort of true to cuisine.
Yeah.
You know, all the 5-star hotels had coffee shops
yeah,
and
but
stuff
crap,
like that.
no, they were-
Yeah, but it was the same thing. Your
Yeah.
cream of tomato soup and your quintessential ubiquitous club
Yeah,
sandwich and all of that stuff. And we actually did like a Texas barbecue chicken with cornbread and stuff like that. And
You also didn't take any shit from your guests. I remember being there one day and you
Yeah.
had something served with home fries.
that's always been my problem.
Yeah. And the guy came and said, "These are not home fries." And you said, "They're the fries from my home."
Yeah.
That's why they
This
call
is
home
my
fries.
home. Yeah,
So that
exactly.
was the end of that conversation.
Yeah.
I'm sure you think you know what you're talking about, but you don't really attitude to that kind of customer, haven't you?
No, I have never had. I don't have patience for somebody who's out of privilege or out of ignorance trying to assert themselves.
And you had, at least in those days, I don't know if Bombay's any different now, but in those days, you had a lot of those people.
Yeah. Well, it's. I think you still have them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank God I don't run a restaurant that.
I remember. I mean, I've thrown people out of Indigo. I've thrown people out of
For what?
Indigo delis, just behaving badly.
Define behaving badly.
There was this one time where there was this couple, and everything that we served them was just wrong. The steak was no good, or this was no good, or that was no good, or that service, blah, blah, blah. I finally came out of the kitchen and I said, "What's the problem?" And he said, "This is no good." "Who are you?" I said, "This is my restaurant." And he just looked at me and I said, "Look, it's very clearly the case here today that, no matter what we do is not going to make your dining experience a pleasurable one for you. The stars are not aligning, clearly. So why don't you get up and leave? And why don't you come back another day when you learn how to behave in public and not create such a fuss." He said, "Do you know who I am?" And all this nonsense. I don't care. Right now, you're disturbing the rest of my diners who are enjoying their meals. So I'd like you to leave. And escorted him to the door. And I was like
escorted
sweating.
him like a policeman?
No,
or like,
no.
"Gently,
Just
sir, this
stood
way,"
there,
like- yeah.
stood there and said, up and out. And so that happened. And I came back, I was like shaking and sweating and what have you. And I came back into the dining room to apologize to everyone, and everybody got up and clapped. They said,
really?
"Thank you. We got tired of listening to this guy, So it was wild. And the same thing happened in New Delhi when we first opened our Indigo Delhi.
Yeah.
I remember there was some influencer who we had to send a car to pick up from Gurgaon and bring her to the Delhi. And I remember she sat down and I was sitting there with her, and she looked at the menu and said, "Roast garlic. Who eats roast garlic?" And I was about to say something, and my manager, Jennifer, he was walking past and he realized what was going to happen. And he said, "Sir, there's a phone call for you." And he extradited me immediately
If he
from
had
there.
not, what would you have
I would
said?
have just slammed into her. So I was, and he took me away and he said, "We will handle her. Please don't interact with her." I said, "Okay, fine." And I left.
But
So-
did you therefore get a reputation for arrogance, or did people?
I don't know if it was, maybe it was. Maybe people thought I was arrogant. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you were arrogant, but often people respond that way.
Well, I knew I had arrived when, after, I think, 6 months of Indigo or whatever.
This is the original Indigo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Morparia, the cartoonist.
Who?
Morparia, or is it Marporia?
Marporia. Hemant Marporia.
Hemant Marporia. Sorry, I keep saying it wrong. He did a cartoon on Bindigo with a fat chef standing there, saying that, and there were these two hack journalists up in front, and they were talking to each other, saying that we can only get a meal there if we commit a full editorial to their space,
Which
to
actually
the
was not true because
restaurant.
you never wanted to be written about.
No, never did. But I guess it's the thing is, people would call and say, "I'd like to review your restaurant." I'd say, "Sure, go ahead."
The restaurant's there, come and eat.
The restaurant's there, come and eat. No, you don't understand. When should I come? I said, "No, I understand perfectly. You want me to invite you and then wine you and dine you." I said, "That's not how it works, right? The way it works is you make a reservation like anyone else. You come in like anyone else. You're shown to the table like anyone else. You order off the menu like anyone else. You pay your bill like anyone else. Then you write what you want."
This is 25 years ago.
Yeah, and that people didn't get.
But you got away with it. Indigo became the most successful restaurant of its era. Could you do it now in this influencer era? Where you pay agencies to pay people to come to eat free and then give you a good review on Instagram?
It's tougher. I think, I like to think, I'll tell you what's happened, Vir, is that I feel that the gestation period of restaurants, because of the economics today, high rents, staff who's jumping all the time because somebody's throwing $5 at them more, stuff like that. I think the gestation period of a restaurant has telescoped or microscope, put it that way. It's shortened.
That's after it opens. When you say gestation.
Yeah. For it to get traction
established
established and whatever. I mean, I'll talk about Ode today, right? I mean, we've been 3 years in, and in my mind...
Ode, I mean, you might as well use it to get some publicity of yourself. Ode is your new restaurant.
That's right.
Your latest
one
restaurant.
Of them, yeah.
Which is where?
It's in Worli, in the Raheja Altimus building. And
what kind of food does it do?
It's loosely Mediterranean, but I play with Indian flavors also in some of the food.
So, commercial over. Go on there.
Okay. Anyway, so we've been open 3 years.
Yeah.
It started boom. It started with a bang. Then it sort of ebbed a little bit. And now it's gaining traction again as more people are coming and eating and enjoying the food.
Did you pay influencers to come and write about it?
Initially, yes.
So initially we did. So now,
now
you can't call and say, my restaurant, you want to come, otherwise fuck off. You can't do that any longer.
No way. Absolutely not. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a thing. I don't know if it's good or bad.
Yeah,
I think if look, to me, what we do in terms of food, in terms of the space, the service, the hospitality, all of it. And I've said this many times before, it's all perception management at the end of the day, right? And it has to be spot on. It has to be right in order for it to work. If there's a failing anywhere, it's not working. And people may not be able to pinpoint exactly what they don't like about the space, but there's something that'll rub them the wrong way, that'll make them a little uncomfortable, saying, I'm not sure I like it, and that's enough.
But nobody in any restaurant you've run has ever complained about the food.
Of course they have.
Really?
I have many times gone up and down. I have
what kind of complaints?
About it being either insipid or too...
Isme masala nahi.
Not, okay, so perhaps I should rephrase that. Maybe not in a systemic failure.
Yeah.
But in
maybe an individual day.
Yes,
but that's true of the best restaurants in the world.
Sure.
You can't always be top of your
cooks
game.
had a bad day, It does happen.
But I think something is cooked too long and he's looked away. It happens, right?
But in a overall systemic way, I don't think everyone's...
because everybody talks about you as having created a new kind of restaurant in Bombay, which is, of course, entirely accurate. What they miss is that you did that with European food, which everybody said had no market in India. You did it in a way that broke away from what the five-star hotels were doing. You did it to world's class standards, and the food was always good.
Yeah. I lucked out. I remember when we were opening Indigo and we were doing our soft opening, Camellia Punjabi, the grand dame of...
I thought you were going to with grand dame, but I didn't prompt you,
Of Taj F&B. I remember she was there for one of the dinners and I came out of the kitchen and she looked at me and she goes, Rahul, gutsy move, but will it work?
Yeah.
And my God, that gave me pause. So,
But you had options even then. You could have done within the sort of European stroke Mediterranean framework, you could have done more crowd pleasing food, but you didn't compromise.
no, Veer, I don't think, firstly, I don't think I could have because
Why?
I don't think, Indigo is a very odd thing. It's very easy now in hindsight to say, oh, I did this or I did that. And, it was very clever of me to have done this. But I think as I launched into it, as I actually lived the opening and the creation and the, all of that, I don't think I really planned it out from a point of view that this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to fund it and all that. I think I jumped into it partly with a small sense of bravado or foolishness or I don't know what, but it's something I felt that I had to do in that way.
What way?
In terms of what, to me, restauranting was correct about, or things that made a restaurant correct. The hospitality, the attention to cooking, ingredients, all these things. I mean, it's a very basic thing.
Even
in a
the
way.
service,
Everything.
I thought was not good and not ass licking either.
No,
It was
it was
balance.
very good. We were very understated. I think that was restraint.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's really what Indigo was. And it didn't matter who you were who came to eat. We were very humble. We were sure of what we were doing,
Yeah.
but we were never in your face.
Yeah. I think that's right.
And there was great restraint, and there was great correct practice, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really what I wanted to do. I was reinventing myself because I had started to cut corners. I had, very sort of kaam chalao.
What were you doing before Indigo was what?
I was under the over.
Yes,
and
where you
then
didn't cut corners, which was
in
fine.
between under the over and Indigo, we moved to Bangalore and ran.
I never went to there.
We ran Protima Bedi's Kutiram retreat out in Hesaragatta near her
I
dance
remember.
village, Nityagram.
Yeah, but by the time you opened Indigo, there was no cutting of corners. It was world-class standards.
No, I was very clear. It took us a year and a half to put that restaurant up.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes.
Camellia said that after you'd opened. Didn't anyone tell you, do not open a European restaurant? It doesn't work in India.
Yes.
And?
And I was foolish. I didn't
No,
know
you were not
anything
foolish.
else.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah,
No, what I'm saying is I didn't pay attention. I would yes, and then I did what I had to do anyway.
And you were doing things like the risottos were made on the spot when you ordered, etc. You were doing really best practices.
Yeah.
Any
Didn't cut
dishes you
corners.
remember from that era with particular fondness?
Our lobster risotto, our bisque, the jalapeno chocolate fondant that we used to do.
Which was now chili and chocolate is a combination
Sure.
people have heard of. But in those days, it was unprecedented.
Yeah. Early days, I remember using sola chikadi, sol curry with as a sauce with fish.
You remember that?
My play with every menu had a sort of Maharashtrian dish which I had played with. On there, and it was generally with fish.
Yeah.
But they were. Our steak was fantastic, and it was always buffalo. We never imported meat.
Yeah, I've always meant to ask you that. What cut did you use and how did you get such a
Tenderloin.
good thing? Yeah.
Undercut, yeah.
And what did you do with the steak? Did you
Absolutely
marinate it?
nothing.
How did you get that quality?
We had a good supplier. The same guy who, in the book, I talk about the rabbit story.
Yeah.
But
he's actually supplied you really. They didn't.
It was
you didn't
very
have to-
good quality
You didn't have to go to
buff.
a pet shop and buy things.
no, it was very good.
Only the
Very good
rabbits.
quality buff. Yeah. And it's just the way we treated it, I think, which was
So when
very
Indigo
little.
was so successful, what did it do to you? Did you feel vindicated, or did you just take it for granted? Had you been worried before it opened?
I think after a few years of it, it just grew.
Yeah.
Okay. It defied all restaurant logic.
Yeah.
You know, you normally look at a curve that this, and then you start slumping, and then you kind of hover out. This was just an upward incline over many, many years. And I think you get jaded. I think you get complacent. You know, you start partying, you start losing focus, you start.
Does that happen with you?
Yeah.
How much partying did you do?
A bit for a while until I caught myself and said,
This was partying with alcohol?
alcohol, drugs, whatever.
I was going to gently say white powder, but
Yeah, it
you're
all
saying
happened.
drugs. Yeah?
It all
So
happened.
that's like the classic
It all
chef's trap.
It all happened. Yeah, it all happened.
But was that common in Bombay or
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, nobody ever invited me to any of these parties.
There you go.
And so, do you think you were just living the life and getting into all this white powder, alcohol?
It
fun
wasn't. I
time?
mean, you make it sound like you know, like we were depraved.
You made it sound like that. You said,
No, it wasn't that. But I did lose focus, I think, for a while. For
which
like
meant what? In
for
terms
like
of
a
the
year,
restaurant?
year or two. Yeah, in fact, in terms of you know, Indigo operated from 99, and I think in the we started in 99, and I think by the around 2010, 2009, 8, around that period, when we should have really done another major reinvention and re-looked at the way that we were serving food and the way that we were putting food on a plate and just everything about it. And that didn't happen because I don't think I was thinking about it consciously in those days. It's
Also,
because
it was
of
doing
this.
well, so there was a
Yeah.
sense of a rain broke, why fix
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When do the Indigo delis open? When is the first one?
So the Indigo, the first one was, good Lord, I think 2003, 4.
Yeah, so not long after the first Indigo, right?
Yeah. So the first thing we really wanted to do after Indigo was I wanted to do a grill in Juhu, and we were about 2 months away from opening, and we ran into a snag with the landlord, and we wound up in court for 2 years.
You got the story in the book.
Yeah.
It sounds very frustrating.
It was.
Yeah. Also, after Indigo, Delhi was also a huge success.
Yeah.
People just talk about the original Indigo, but they forget that the
The
Delhi,
Indigo
in a
Delhi
way,
was amazing.
it also set a trend for a
Yeah.
kind of restaurant.
Yeah, it really did, because again, it was very honest food. I
Yeah.
think I've always done what I like to call honest food. You know,
I wouldn't dispute any of that. But also, it wasn't a Delhi. It wasn't the Carnegie Delhi or
No.
Katz's. It was very much a casual version of Indigo, right?
Yeah, we did sandwiches, we did deli meats, and
But
know,
the
you
pizza
had
started at the beginning, or the pizzas came later?
pizzas were a creation of JD, by the way.
Yeah. He was a very, very good chef.
Oh, that was
Outstanding
those
chef.
papad thin
Yeah.
pizzas. Yeah, it's brilliant.
I don't think Delhi's ever recovered from
No.
his leaving.
True.
Yeah. Okay, so did you really make a lot of money during that period? Because subsequent events suggest you
Indigo
did.
did well. Indigo did
So what
very
happened
well.
to them? Did it go up your nose or what happened?
No, Christ, it wasn't that long, man.
Okay.
Now I'm getting, no.
You mentioned the D word.
Yeah,
I did not.
okay,
All right,
okay,
yeah.
pounce. No, none of that happened. But what happened to it? So interesting. I think in hindsight, one of the big regrets perhaps that I have is that not ever having come from a business background,
Yeah.
and I think not having really paid attention to the business side of it.
Yeah.
To me, it was always about running a restaurant correctly
And having fun.
and having fun. And in so doing, the business took care of itself. So you ask what happened to all the
All the money you made during that period.
I was on a salary. I was on a salary. I never, in hindsight, we should have taken money out of the business.
That's right.
As time went on. We
You never did.
Never did.
Because you had this naive idea that I have to reinvest.
Yeah,
in this.
yeah. All that happened, and we kept, for the next Indigo Delhi, we would self-fund, and that's how it went.
So you can tell you didn't come from a business background.
No, it's very true.
I always think that your story is an interesting story of a man who came from an upper middle class background in Bombay, imagined that everybody was as decent as he was, and created wonderful restaurants, created great food, but ultimately realized that he was working under a misconception. Everyone wasn't as decent as he was.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah. Has that occurred to you?
Shit happens. Yeah. People are not, and I still am that way. I'm very trusting. And I'm very...
Unless you have great
I'm very
reason to
open.
doubt it, yeah?
Yeah. But I think what's also happened over the years, I've been burnt so many times that you eventually get a little bit of scar tissue.
There's been lots of these issues?
What?
I know what happened with Indigo, but that's
No, I think just trusting where you lay yourself out and, somebody just takes advantage of it.
Okay, so now that we've come onto the area of business, shall we talk about Indigo's problems? Okay, one problem led to another. In the case of Delhi, you guys chose a location which had huge problems with the municipal corporation.
I was...
and it delayed your opening, and then it was closed down again.
So we were already exiting the company by that point.
But when that location was still, you stayed at the Hyatt, you did the menus, you trained the staff.
Yeah, because the last thing of my exit was to
open that one.
Deliver that restaurant. I didn't care about it, but I mean, it's very sad because it was a beautiful restaurant.
It was a great missed
stunning
opportunity.
restaurant.
Okay, so the problems, as I understand it, and we're going to pretend that nobody has read your book because I want this to appeal to everyone, is that you had funding issues and you chose the wrong second round of investors. Is that fair?
Yeah. Funding issues. We had a situation in 2008-9 where we had signed with a fund. We had started to roll out before on this very ambitious expansion plan, which included the Toad on the Turf, the racecourse project, which was massive.
And Neil also.
Yeah, which was all part of that. So we had started to roll out even before the infusion of fresh capital.
Because you were assuming it would come.
Yeah, and we had been asked by the investor to don't stop your expansion, the funds will come, we will close this, and all of that. And
in the light of what happened later, I need to ask you this. Did you not do due diligence on who this?
We did due diligence.
How bad was your due diligence?
No, it was good.
Then?
We knew everything about this guy.
Tell the story, then in retrospect, be clear why I asked this question.
I know.
You started rolling out things.
We started rolling out.
Fund was going to send you money
based on internal accruals, right? And when we signed, finally, long story short, the funds never came.
And it was actually worse than that. No?
It was a lot worse than that.
Yeah, it was not the funds never came. They kept lying to you.
Yeah. Read the book. But anyway,
and you guys kept sitting and waiting, and this fund apparently never existed or never had the money.
It's like we had to believe. I think what happened is that as the markets bottomed out in, end of 2009.
This is post Lehman Brothers.
2009, is that this funders, which was, I think, a bank in Hong Kong and a bank in France or whatever, I think their funding dried up.
The funds funding dried up.
The funds funding dried up.
Okay.
Or the funds backing.
But they didn't tell you that.
Right. Rather than telling us and being honest about it, they just went ahead and tried to close the deal on the hope that everything would turn around. In fact, to the point where we even met their bankers here in Bombay, their backers.
Yeah,
and everything was all copacetic. And I mean,
they were really genuine guys. They sent two actors to pretend to be their backers. Did you ever find that? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they were genuine. But now that you say this is the first time I'm thinking.
Think about it.
Maybe, just maybe we were conned. No. And so that was a disaster because, we
You
were,
have to read the book for the full story, but it's a great story. Go on.
we almost went bankrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, I was responsible for the livelihoods of, 500-600
And you
families at
borrowed
this
money
point.
from your parents to start the restaurant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
all of that was at stake.
Everything was at stake. And so we were then introduced to some other people. They,
Let's just keep going with this. Some other people. I was saying, how does this go?
this hardcore Punjabi businessman. Anyway,
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to say more. Read the book.
Punjabi
But they're the
businessman
only-
and son.
Yeah. They were the only guys who, whom we could find at that
Now,
time.
how?
And
You had such a successful restaurant.
we were in, I don't know.
How
we were
could
in-
you not find proper backers?
Look, at the time, so our due diligence with them, I think, was hurried. And that's where the problem was, is that the recommendation to go with them or the introduction was made by very, very dear friends.
Who didn't know these guys were jokers, or just you were desperate?
Both, probably.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And I think personally, because of the introduction, I was a little more at ease. And we should have been a lot more diligent with our diligence.
So when you say due diligence, you called another of your pals and they told you, or you
No,
did
no,
proper?
no. Properly with like a law firm, with accountants, with
But
all
see,
of that.
what due diligence will tell you is whether the company is solid,
Is sound,
whether it
yeah.
has money. It won't tell you whether the guy's a jerk. No?
That is correct.
Yeah, which is, I think, the mistake many of us
Yeah,
make.
yeah. Because it's not. I mean, when like things are going well, if a person's a jerk, it's not. It's
manageable.
It's like a non-issue. But when things are not going well, it can be a nightmare.
Now,
And it is a nightmare.
let me take you back a bit. Part of the problem was that you had started an expansion that was supposed to be funded by a fund that didn't fund.
Correct.
That makes sense?
Absolutely.
Which is what made you desperate.
Yeah.
Now, if you hadn't done the expansion and hadn't been misled into believing the funds were coming, Indigo was actually doing very well.
We were doing very well. We were in 2008, I think, just prior to the collapse, when things were really booming. Back then, we were averaging, I think, about 7-8 lakhs a day turnover.
In those days.
In those days.
Yeah. And you
It
had,
was madness.
and you had, it was like the place to go to. The story that David Cameron, when
Yeah.
he was prime minister, came to the restaurant.
Yeah, that's a funny story.
What happened?
So we were there in the afternoon. He was here in India with a commerce delegation.
Okay.
And they were staying here at the Taj. In the afternoon, we got visited by 2 MI6, I guess, security people.
Like James Bond type? So
No, they just came. They were wearing a blue blazer and like a blue suit, but they were carrying an Uzi.
really? You could tell?
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, it was there. The bulge was there. One of the agents was this Rastafari from, I guess, the British Virgin Islands or someplace like that.
Proves of nothing else is the SIS has adopted diversity practices.
Yeah. And she comes in, she goes, "Hey, man," she goes, Prime Minister
Rastafari means
Cameron.
she had dreadlocks.
Yeah, full on. And then they were just tied in the back. And
She said, hey, man.
yeah, man. She goes, Prime Minister Cameron will eat here tonight. We said, okay, cool. And so then we walked up to the terrace and she looked around and she said, he'll sit here, his aides will sit here, and we'll sit here. I said, okay. And I said, because in the past we had the Clintons were going to come and we've had other dignitaries and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I asked, I said, on the roof, open like this? He goes, yeah, he wants to be treated like anyone. I said, okay, cool. I have no problem.
Anyone would
and
do
in the evening,
Secret Service agents.
Yeah, and in the evening, he and his entourage, they walked from the Taj to Indigo. It set her Indian...
Security must be mad.
They went apeshit. They didn't know what to do. I mean, everything was being blocked and, whatever. Anyway, they came in, they sat down, and there was somebody from the BMC in the kitchen. And with each dish that we made, we were instructed to take part of it and put it in a plastic food container, and which they sealed with a rope and this wax, the wax thing, and it was kept there. And so I was asking this guy, I said, "What are you doing this for?" He says, "In case he gets sick, then we have from the same batch what was made and all." I said, "How do you know what I'm putting in here was going to his table?" So the guy looked at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So it was so stupid. Anyway.
What did Cameron order?
I can't remember.
Okay,
now.
never mind. Go ahead.
But so after the first course went out, the same MI6 agent comes down to the kitchen. She's like all frazzled. She goes, "What are you doing, man?" So I said, "What?" She goes, "You can't serve the PM first." I said, "But he's the PM." She goes, "Yeah, man, but if he eats first and he's done and leaves, we have to get up and go. I want to eat my dinner, man." And so we said, "Okay, makes perfect sense." So in the middle of service, this is a Friday night or a Saturday night at Indigo, we were heaving. We switched the order of their table and the PM's table. His food got delayed in all the chaos.
And the MI6 people got...
They got to eat. It was all fine. But it was hilarious because he actually reached out to my manager who was on the terrace and said, "How long is our food going to be?" And in true Indigo fashion, understated, we said, "We treat you all the same." He said, "So I'm really sorry. The kitchen's a little backed up. Your food will be out momentarily." This is the Prime Minister of England. So I think it was pretty wild.
But they enjoyed the food.
They loved it.
Yeah. Probably the most famous at that time were the people who'd come. But you had lots of famous people.
Tons.
Yeah.
Yeah, sports personalities. I mean, Christ, all of the cricketers would come from all over. We had Olympic athletes. We had Hollywood, tons. Bollywood.
Hollywood, really?
Yeah. In fact, it was really funny. Not funny, but we had Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and they were shooting
Mighty
Heart. They did a thing at Indigo and did a party there at night afterwards. Why? Because Daniel Pearl used to play at Indigo.
Really?
We used to do a jam nights, like a jazz open mic kind of thing. Either Thursdays or Tuesdays, I can't remember. I think Thursdays. And he played the clarinet.
Wow.
And he was there.
How amazing.
Wait, clarinet or violin? I can't remember. But he was there. And he used to play there before he went to Pakistan and got beheaded.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And so they actually did part of that. And then they did a party at Indigo where they booked the whole terrace and stuff after they had got done shooting.
Wow. So it's a rap party almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my whole point. You are now owner and chef at one of the most glamorous and successful restaurants in this part of the world. You get conned into believing that money is coming and embark on expansion. And once that train starts rolling, basically you're screwed, no? You have to find the money from somewhere or the other.
Yeah, because we had really bitten off way more than we could chew with that project. With the race course.
New owners who, in respect to the fact that they're not represented in the program, we will not name. But in your book, you say they were father and son, the new investors.
Yeah.
Yeah? Did you know from the beginning there was going to be a problem?
No.
Then when did the problem start?
When did the problem start? Well, it started... So, we had... When they came on board, it had been many months that our senior team had taken salary cuts. We had reduced people's salaries and stuff like that because we were really bleeding. There'd been no bonuses, there'd been no promotions, there'd been none of that. And I remember it was Fashion Week here.
Was it Lakme Fashion Week?
Lakme Fashion Week. He wanted to host the closing party of the Fashion Week at Tote. This is the Sun.
Tote, which we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Is the restaurant you opened at the race course.
That's correct.
And
it was a big, it had
lots of space.
We had a world-class bar there on top. We had a large event space. It was like, 19,000, 20,000 square feet of F&B. I said in a meeting that we should not do it, that people have not been paid, people have not got promotions, all of this other stuff. They've not got increments. It's a bad look for new owners to come in and then host this many, many tens of lakhs party for free.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we will do it. I said, your money is better spent. If you want to spend that money, put it in the company or pay the employees, right?
Right.
No. So basically, it did it, and things started souring from there. I was
They
like,
had the party anyway.
they had the party. It was done. I then things stopped working out with the son and me.
Okay.
I tried to talk sense with the father. That seemed to work very well. And then I soon learned that
Was there a good cop, bad cop routine going on?
it started that way. And then eventually it was all bad cop. And it was just...
Listen, obvious question. You invest in a restaurant helmed by Rahul Akerkar, who was at that stage the best known chef in Bombay, one of the best known chefs in India. And then you piss off Rahul Akerkar. What's that going to do to your investment?
I don't think they cared. For
Really?
them, yeah. For them, they saw an opportunity to double their money somehow.
How?
So they started several restaurants at the time, and just on that valuation, I think they were able to eventually get their own additional funding on board. That was the idea. They didn't care about the restaurants at all.
Really?
Yeah, it was purely a business venture.
They wanted the name to get the valuation for everything.
That was it. I mean, in hindsight,
So
I'm pretty
you
clear
were just
that
a
was it.
patsy.
Yeah, pretty clear it was that.
You also write, and that's more with sorrow rather than anger, that some of your own key employees went over to the dark side.
That happened.
How did that feel?
That's real betrayal.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I mean, when you're trusting and you carry people with you because you want them to grow from this experience also, and then they turn around and do so. I mean, in some cases, I could understand because they were threatened, their livelihoods were threatened unless they behaved in a particular
If
way.
they'd said they were key employees at Indigo, they'd have got a job somewhere else.
Exactly. So there's a side of me that, like a soft side that says, okay, I understand, but there's another side because of who I am also. I have never crossed a line.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. I'll tell you to your face to fuck off. So
I think you're well known for that, so that's okay.
oh God. Anyway, no. So yeah, it was very painful. It hurt.
Did you realize that this was going on behind
No.
your back?
It-
Because you called one
initially,
of them
no.
Judas in the
Initially,
book.
no. But then it slowly started to, as things grew, as Malini was forced out of the company.
That's your wife. She was told,
Yeah.
yeah. And she was doing the marketing and
She
doing a
used to do
brilliant
all
job of
the...
it.
Yeah, she
And
did
they
a
asked
great
for her
job
to
at
go,
it.
yeah?
She had her own way of doing things. I
Yeah.
mean, it was not a structured marketing team kind of thing, but
Given how
she achieved.
famous Indigo was, obviously she knew what she was doing.
Absolutely. She actually, in one of the board meetings, let the old man have it.
Really?
Yeah, and that did not sit well.
In front of everyone.
Yeah.
Have it means she said what?
She just argued a point. She was very clear about a point of view, and she made it. And
did not go down?
And it did not go down well with him. To be told off by a younger woman
In public.
in public, that did not go. So I'll tell you where it really happened. I started to realize that they had to go because they were just slowly taking apart the company.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Pathu Keswani at Lemon Tree.
Right.
And we've been friends for a while. And they were on an expansion time. He had just got all these funds and whatever else. And we suggested to him that he should buy these guys out. And that deal was actually going through. And then the Indigo Delhi in Colaba, which is the first one, we got into some issue with the Bombay Port Trust.
Right.
As most of the properties in the Bombay Port Trust, there's this huge public interest
I remember
litigation
that.
against them.
But you weren't
and
the
all.
only people. It
No.
affected-
It affected everybody in the Port
Yeah.
Trust. And I mean, all the tenants of the Port Trust. And so there was this, and we had got this notice to close down the deli. The then owner said that they would build another one right across the street, whatever, and don't change the valuation. And Pathu decided to play tough also, and really low balled the deal, and everything fell apart. Now the thing is, to get them to come to the table, I had started to say stuff like, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave the company. And, I was throwing my weight. I was being coached. Okay. I had no idea about how mergers and acquisitions happen. And I was being coached about things to say, how to say it, how to behave. People.
Friends or
friends. People who were in the finance space and who live and breathe this shit every day.
Okay.
And who were also part of helping structure the deal.
Okay.
Behind the scenes. And so I was laying all this stuff out there, haughty and doing all of this. And when the whole deal fell through, I never went through with any of the threat that I had. I didn't, it was all...
Thereby exposing
yourself. It was all bluster.
Yeah.
Right? And so at that point, there was like, okay, fuck you. Then
That's a rookie mistake, no? To make a threat you can't deliver on.
And then things turned really, really ugly.
What happened?
Well, their whole game was to get us out.
Why? How would they run it? You're saying it didn't matter?
At this point, I guess they were speaking to a fund. They saw a route to double their investment. They didn't care about the restaurant or anybody who worked there. And, they were all complicit in it, and they just went through it. But they had to get me out because I had a veto on everything.
Yeah.
And they just made it, it was all these boardroom machinations and, maneuvering and all that stuff.
So how could they get you out?
It was a massive learning.
How could they get you out? You had veto power.
Yeah,
it was your company, you were the face.
So one of the things that had happened is when they came on as investors, there was one clause in my contract that said until they had one share in the company, I could not sell.
Okay.
So I was told very clearly, we'll sell everything we have, but keep one share. You will never be able to sell.
Which is true.
And so I realized that I was with my back against the wall, and they kept doing things to dilute me. They would do, all these rights issues and this issues and that, whatever else. And I didn't have the funds to put in.
Sure.
You're talking 15 crores, 20 crores, stuff like this. I didn't have that kind of money.
Did they offer to buy you out?
Eventually. I finally went to the old man and I said, look, you win. And it was actually a very interesting time because for 3 to 4 months it was, I used to go to him in the evening and we'd sit over whiskey and I'd have dinner with him and we would...
This is when he was trying to force you out.
Yeah. And I said, I said to myself, let me try and understand this guy. And we'd go and we'd talk. And it's really the first time in all those years that he was a part, that we had done this, where he was an investor, where we actually sat and got to know one another.
Kya you were going anywhere.
I was going. And it was very interesting. I was talking about hospitality and he was like, yaar, hospitality ki maro goli, pehle paise banao, baad mein hospitality dekhte hain, all this kind of stuff. He said one thing one night. He said, it's very interesting how, he says, if we had spent all this time in construction rather than destruction, he says, we would not be here right now. Which is true, but it was moot.
But here's my question, which is the bit I don't understand. I know he got some of your employees on his side, but did they really believe they could run the Indigo empire without you?
That's what they did.
Well, I haven't run it. It crashed and burned.
They did run it, but into the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but they believed they could run it successfully.
And also, I don't think, as I said, I don't think they really gave a damn so much about running it as a restaurant. In fact, their investors who came in, the fund that they were talking to, did not even, while this whole thing was going on with them, did not even once get in touch with me as the original
the founder
founder
and face.
face, to ask me about why I wanted to leave or why they were trying to get me out or any of that. So
Isn't that odd?
very odd.
So did they get these investors finally?
Yeah. They came in and they sold out.
So these guys exited fine with their...
They exited and the whole company fell apart.
And then what happens to you? How much money did you make in the sell-off?
Not what I should have, probably half of what I should have.
But enough to live afterwards, or you had to keep
Yeah,
working?
no, to a point. I had a 2-year non-compete, which they reimbursed me for also, which was okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but it really allowed us to clear our head for a bit. My younger daughter, at that point, we had a medical issue in the family. She had a stroke at 15.
Oh my God.
In fact, while we were negotiating the whole separation from the company, this happened, and it was madness.
Must have been hell.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So you walk away with some money, not what you deserve.
Yeah.
And then you do what?
Then figure out what we're doing next, and after that we did Qualia.
Yeah. But there was a gap between the two.
2 years.
2 years. This
Yeah.
is your non-compete
That's
period.
my non-compete.
Qualia is great and successful.
It was a great restaurant.
Killed by the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful restaurant.
Basically, it was. So, did you reinvent your food in the
Again,
interim?
yes. I think
Because
we did.
what I remember at Qualia, there was a lot of fermentation and stuff,
Pickling,
which
fermenting.
wasn't in the original Indigo.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you had still the same great service. And
Yeah,
the same
all of
ambiance.
that. I mean, it was a beautiful space too, grand. It was very funny because I was so sure that my coming back after the thing, I wanted to do a small space, a cheap space,
A little bistro.
all of the things. And then while we were looking at spaces, we saw this double height, huge facade and all this stuff at the World Towers, at Lodha World Towers, and it's like, wow, I want this space for a restaurant. And of course, everything went to
But nobody
shit.
could have predicted the pandemic at that stage.
No.
So, this is a slightly tough question, but you've built up this huge empire. You've gone through years of stress. You've lost the empire. You open a really great restaurant, and then the pandemic comes along and that restaurant is in trouble. Did you feel at that stage that somebody up there was out to get you?
Yeah, but I mean, all these things go through your head. Has like somebody put nazar and all this. I'm not a very religious or superstitious person, but you do start thinking. I mean, when things happen, they can either happen like the choices are. It can either be good or it can be bad.
Right.
And if it's continuously bad, you have to ask yourself, why is the other choice not happening?
Did you ever lose confidence in yourself? Feel that maybe
think so.
I'm from another era, I can't cut it in this era?
Of course, I constantly question myself, even now.
Really? Why? You have successful restaurant now.
Yeah, I know, but I'm always questioning my relevance.
I mean,
It's just me.
you're
I
not a
don't.
mini skirt, yeah? You don't have to be relevant.
No, but it's
you
just
have to
me.
be good.
It's just me. It's I still say, I ask myself, is the way that I'm running a restaurant today?
You think Daniel Buru wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh my God, it's been so many years.
I
Am
don't know
still
what
relevant?"
he does. I don't know what he does.
Nobody
He's-
does that. I don't know why you feel that.
I don't know. Maybe it's the old imposter syndrome, or who knows what.
But I mean,
That's been there for years.
That old business of I came back and I thought I wasn't a chef. I was just a cook. You've had imposter syndrome for a long time.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Do you think some of the arrogance is a cover?
Sorry, do I think some of the arrogance?
Is a cover for that?
Good question. No, I don't think so.
No, it's just arrogance for the sake of arrogance.
No, I'm not arrogant. Come on.
But you were really, it's like somebody came along and gave you everything and you were the toast of town and you changed the whole restaurant business. And then suddenly one vengeful fairy came along
Yeah.
and took it all away, no?
Yeah. Karma's a bitch.
Really. But I mean, the story is a happy ending because you started again and have a successful
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah.
More than one, right?
I'm loving what I'm doing now.
How did that happen? Tell us that story.
So when Qualia shut, the Aditya Birla Group reached out. And initially, I was trying to get them to just take over Qualia because we had a running restaurant. and there were some issues that they didn't want to get involved in. So long story short, they decided, their legal side said, don't.
We want Rahul, not Kolya.
Yeah,
Basically.
And so so we set up a company to build restaurants, and we have 3 now.
You have Ode, you have Varsa, which I went to
And
the
Flint.
other day, and Flint, which
And
is next
Flint.
to Varsa, right?
And we have a catering arm now called Bay 21.
Which does all kinds of food.
Yeah.
Because Neil, which was one of your most successful enterprises, grew out of your catering arm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought genuine Awadhi food to Bombay, which was used to sort of Punjabi food or Gujarati Muslim food.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was like the first time you'd done that.
Yeah,
Anybody
and
done that.
Mukhtar is with us again. JD is again with us.
So the old
The whole-
team is, gang is back.
The whole gang of 4 is back. Yeah.
So when you look back at all of that, can you pinpoint a day when you made the mistake that led to all of the... No? You think it was just a series of small mistakes?
Yeah, I think that kind of happens. You know, you can say the day you signed with your last partners, that was the big mistake. Yes. But then you could say that you wound up there because we had signed with the other investor, but the money never came. So, you know, you could go back further.
But you could say the mistake was starting the expansion before the funds came in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which a business person would not have done.
Yeah.
But you did it because you thought everyone was trustworthy and nice like you.
Perhaps. But it's interesting because I had partners at the time who were sharp, who like were business types, and everybody went along with the flow, you know. So
And nobody told you otherwise.
No, because I think we were pretty certain that this was happening. But having said that, you know, the writing was on the wall too when all these fraudulent or these lies kept happening. Oh, we've transferred some funds, and then there's no funds, and then we would see this bank transfer receipt and all that, and we realized afterwards that, my God, this guy was good at Photoshop.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
In your book, you suggest that was a forgery.
Yeah.
They went that far.
they were, yeah. In fact, the guy got into trouble too eventually.
That's right, yeah.
So,
I'm not going to get into that, but that's it. That's in your book, what happened to him.
yeah.
But you were just another mark. And
We were just another mark.
Long list of marks.
Yeah.
So do you think that there's a lesson in all of this, or you were just unfortunate?
Of course, there is a lesson. One is, I think, that you need to understand business.
Yeah.
Okay, that is clearly a lesson. At the same time, I also think restauranting is, okay, I would say the area of restauranting that I do, which is at the sort of elevated, refined, nuanced kind of level, is not a mass business. It's not a mass outlet business. And I think you need to grow that organically.
Okay.
Slowly. Because they are personality-driven restaurants. They are restaurants that thrive on emotional quotients. You know, they are people forward. You like have to make that connect. They're not QSR format like a McDonald's or something like that. And you can't, you know, it's like raising a child. You can't just have kids, hundreds of them.
Yeah.
You like need to have them at a pace that you can allow them to grow, mature, stand on their own. And I think that's also how restauranting in this space has to happen.
I think that's very wise. It's come through bitter experience, so
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've always, I had always said that I've always wanted to be a big small company and not a small big company. And yet I went down this thing in the end where with funds pouring in and everything else that I stopped doing that. And I allowed myself to change that approach or be forced into changing that approach, and it all fell apart.
Do you think that year of partying was crucial, or you think in
No, you
retrospect
keep,
it made no difference?
don't come back to that anymore.
You started it. I didn't even mention.
I just
I
mentioned
didn't
it.
even mention it.
Yeah, I know, but it's okay. No, absolutely
you're
no.
doing-
No, 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 no.
Okay, in the time that you've been away, the restaurant scene in Bombay has changed dramatically. What do you think of it now?
I think on some
You've
at
been
some level,
you've been very honest throughout the whole podcast, so don't pull your punches.
I'm not pulling any.
No, I'm just warning you in advance.
No. Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, I think what's really nice is that I think as an industry and as a movement of food, I think we're finally coming into our own.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there is now a groundswell of homegrown chefs. Some of them may have, they may have schooled overseas or trained overseas. That's fine. But they are Indian and, they were born here and raised here. And even now you have people who have just worked with some of them also. And people are getting comfortable today turning inwards and championing our own culinary heritage.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful because there is so much this country has to offer.
Yeah.
And it's just across the gamut. I mean, north, south, east, west, there is just such a myriad bunch of just very nuanced, very evolved cuisine.
And do you still question your relevance, or have you sorted that out in your head?
It's not that I question today relevance, but I question whether I'm from a different era now. So I guess in a way that is relevance.
That is
too.
the same thing.
That is relevance because I have, because I see my kids, right? And I'm constantly hearing from them what I should be doing differently. In terms of the menu offering, in terms of the way we approach the operation, in terms of the vibe, in terms of the music, in terms of all of that.
But they may be good on that. But the food, I don't think anybody has your expertise or experience.
Well, hopefully.
No, honestly. Also, I mean, do you ever think that Ode is a success, but it could have gone either way? Do you ever think that even if you never open another restaurant again, your place in culinary history is assured? Indigo just made so much difference to the restaurant scene that nobody can ever take that away from you.
I'd like to think that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I think so. I think I'd like to think that I have managed to make some contribution.
A significant contribution?
I'd like to think that too, yeah.
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 And will you be opening more restaurants?
Oh, God, I'd love to, but I don't know if I'm... it's this whole Marquis de Sade school of life,
I didn't know that was school of life.
Pain and punishment. I don't know. I would like to keep going until the day I drop.
How old are you?
67.
So you've got at least another 15 years in you.
Yeah, for sure. Would I like to keep going? Yeah, but I think I'd like to downsize a lot more. I've always wanted to do a place, and I joke about this. I wanted to do a place where, it's like I cook, there's no menu, come outside, serve, clear, clean, wear clothes thing because I'm at the movies, right?
It would work, no? I think Bombay is actually ready for it. Papa shows you that Bombay is ready.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to do it here.
Where would you do it? South of France? Or
No.
Then?
I don't know.
Where could you do it?
I want to say...
Don't say Goa, for God's sake.
I was going to because we live there. But you're right. It's not the best market.
No.
Do
it in Bombay. It'll do very well. I mean, you're a South Bombay boy.
Yeah, I know.
South Bombay is now having a renaissance.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is, thanks to the coastal road.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's probably the right time to do it.
Who knows? Maybe it'll happen.
And just call it Rahul's. Serve what you want.
I've never been able to do that.
Why?
I don't know.
So you're not that arrogant then.
No.
No, that's a happy note to end this on.
Yeah.
Rahul, it's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Vir. This was fun.
And please remember that no matter whenever you feel a crisis of confidence, you've been one of the most significant figures in gastronomy in this city, and nobody can take that away.
That's very sweet of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.